Hi, welcome to Living as Latinas. I'm Jaquita and I have my co host Audi.
Hello.
On this week's episode, we will be discussing identity and how important it is. Without knowing who we are we not being authentic? Do you find yourself going with the crowd and what others do, but then question your actions later when you are home and by yourself? Are we made to fit in or stand apart alone? Listen and learn about something new that you may not have heard before on our episode of Identity and Finding You, Part 1.
Welcome, everybody. So, what is identity? Psychology today defines identity as identity encompasses the values people hold, which dictate the choices they make. An identity contains multiple roles. So some examples of identity can be being a mom, being a teacher, being a US citizen, being a friend, a daughter. And each one of these roles hold meaning and expectations that are internalized into one's identity. And identity is something that evolves with time. It's something that changes. For example, in being a mom, when you're 15, that you don't hold that identity because you're not a mom. You're probably defining yourself as a daughter. Then you have a baby, and that completely changes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when you hear the definition of identity, or when you're asked that question, what are some of the things that come to mind?
I mean, for me, I think that when I hear identity, I think of your roles, definitely, like what you were just saying. So being a mom, being a sister, being a friend, all those different components. And I also think like your intrinsic values of who you are. So that as well. So, like, are you a good person? Do you value friendship? Do you value love, honesty, compassion? Those kinds of traits that we have inside of ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I've always, like, when I was a teenager, it was really hard for me to identify myself because I would, hearing that question, I would think about all of those things that you mentioned, plus all of the things that I mentioned earlier, and it would be really confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So for a little bit there, I just defined my identity as Dominican. And that was when I moved to the United States, right? Because to me, it was like, well, that is the thing that makes me different from you right now, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
Dominican. And and that went for a little bit. But then when that was like too old to
It's too
mention
old.
again, like everybody knows, I was left with, oh, okay. So what is it that I want to be now? And I don't think that it was about that I was changing who I was. It was just for some reason really hard to define who I was. Now that I'm an adult, I totally understand why. Because I am not just this or that. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things. How do
Mm-hmm.
I make that? Like, how do I explain all of the things I am in a world, you know?
Yeah. And I think too, like, as we're growing up, we don't really know exactly who we are. We're evolving, we're changing, especially like when you're a teenager, your body's changing. You're discovering things that you like, people that you like, relationships, schools, friendships, all those things that play an important role into defining who you are. And you're going through it. So it's not when you're going through something, you can't just like be on the outside and be able to see it.
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
you're in it, so it's hard for you to be like, I am this or I am that. Other people probably tell you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. which is really interesting because I think that when you're growing up, when you're a child,
Hmm.
before you're a teenager, your identity it's based on your parents, I think,
Hmm.
because they are the ones telling you, not only your parents, but everybody around you, your teachers and everybody else, they're telling you who you are. They're telling you that you are a girl, that you are a student, depending on what type of student you are. The
Hmm.
teacher is telling you, you misbehave, you're a bad student because you get bad grades. So your identity is just based on all of those things that people are talking about you. But you personally, I don't think that you have an idea of who you really are. It's just
Hmm.
based on what everybody's throwing at you.
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. So like, I'm thinking about people who have identity issues when they're young adults. Like, does this stem from having those things said to them when they're growing up? Oh, you're so dumb. Oh, you can
Right,
never get things right. Oh, you're lazy. Like, you carry those things with you so that when you start defining who you are, you already have all these things that other people have told you. And it's like, okay, so is this true? Is this not true? What I know, is it real? You know?
right, exactly. And I think I go back to what we always talk about, our responsibility as parents. Because if those are the things that you're telling your kid, and then when they're a teenager, you want them to know who they are. You want them to be different. And
Hmm.
you tell them, you're just doing that because your friends are doing it. Like you need to have your own personality. Excuse me, you told me for 15 years that I wasn't able to do that because I was stupid. You told me for 15 years not to trust my own instincts and my own ideas because they were always wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when did I learn how to do all the things that you want me to do now? Like, what the hell?
It's so true, right? You can't expect somebody overnight to be like, okay, everything you said to me, I'm just gonna erase it and I'm just gonna be this person. Like, it doesn't work that way, right?
No, you're training me for this long, and now you pretend that I'm just gonna wake up one day because now I'm a señorita, right? And I need to be mature. But I'm just going based on everything you told me,
Right.
and now you're mad.
Yeah. And I think it's so important because, like, when you're in that age, um a lot of the stuff that we go through is that we want to fit in. We want to fit in with our peers. We want to be liked. So we have that need, like, we look for our identity in the groups that we have. So that could be groups, sports, friendships,
Hmm.
religion, those family, all those different groups. And we kind of like, I feel like we people start like wearing different hats. Like, if I am in my friends group and everybody's quiet, but I'm the loud one, I fit in because I'm
Yes.
different and they like me, you know?
Hmm.
And you take on that identity as the clown of the group or the clown of the class or whatever. And with your family, if you take on the responsibility to, you know, be the one to solve other people's problems, and that's
You're the
your
social
role.
worker
You're the role.
of the
That's your role in that
family.
family, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting how, like, even in our own little different groups that we have, we all play little roles depending on who we
Yes.
are with.
Yes. Definitely. And being a teenager and like you said, having all this changing happening at the same time, all these changes, and having this adult telling you how you should be, why you should think, what is the right thing to be, basically, and you having all these feelings, it's really hard. Like I really think that people take it for granted. Like people don't stop and remember how
Hmm.
it was when they were teenagers. It's
Hmm.
difficult.
It is very difficult. And I feel like that doesn't even stop because as adults, we
It
want,
never stops.
right? We still want to go through those same things, whether we're at work and we want to fit in, whether it's with our friends group, different things, our careers. We want to fit in. We want to be liked. We want to do these things to kind of like, okay, I need to do this so that other people can like me. And I mean, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's the thing that kind of gets very confusing because, like, are you doing these things to be liked and because they're you? Or are you doing these things because you just want to, um, follow the crowd? You don't want to be
Yeah.
different.
And I'll give you an example about myself. So for my whole life, I consider myself a weird person, right? That's an identity that I have, part of it. So I always had like a different perspective about things in general.
Hmm.
Like in all my groups growing up, I was always the person that said, "Oh, but really, I thought it was this." And when I was a teenager, that was kind of cute because I think that people looked at me and thought, "Oh, she's always spaced out. Like she doesn't know what is happening." But that was how they perceived the way that I always acted. But for me, I was never spaced out. I was paying attention. It's just that I was seeing that reality differently in a way.
Hmm.
And so I never took the time to explain myself. I never thought that it was necessary. So if that's what you think, that's fine. Like, I don't care, whatever. But it wasn't only because I didn't care, it was also because I was afraid of people then thinking, oh, but, oh, okay, so it's because you're weird. You know what I mean? Now that I'm an adult, just recently as like last year, I had like an aha moment. I was like, oh, now I get it, right? I was talking to my best friend, Stephanie, and I was like, if I died right now, right? And everybody went to my funeral and everybody was talking about, me and telling stories about me. I bet that everybody will have a different take of who I am. And not because um what's the word that I'm looking for? Hipocrita. I'm spacing out. How do I translate that?
Hypocrite, a hypocrite,
That
right? Yeah.
that is a word. And it's not because of that. It's because I learned from really early in my life to give people what I think they need from me. So I wasn't being a different person. I was just being a different part of myself with different people, right? So I wasn't changing who I was. I was just giving you a mild version while I would give somebody else the craziest version. But it's still me. It's me. But it's like different parts of who I am. And and when I had that moment, I since that day, I've been really intentionally trying to perform as a whole. Like this is me as a whole person. And I'm gonna give it to you, and then you do whatever you need to do with it. But I am not limiting myself anymore based on the other person. I'm just trying to be my whole self, and then you decide.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh my God, all these people are going to be in my funeral thinking that they went to the wrong one. Imagine that.
And that's so funny.
I never knew that about her. No, of course, because I never thought that it was, you'd be interested in that.
Hmm.
So I never told you.
Yeah. And I think, like, for myself, I think that I also feel like I never tried to fit in high school. Like, I was the girl who had red hair and black. and I wore gothic clothes and, purple hair and
You were wild.
whatever my soul told me to be and express myself in whatever way, that was me. You know, I was
That's awesome.
the Latina who listened to punk hard rock, went to mosh pits and listened to bands, and at the same time, you would catch me on the weekend dancing bachata in clubs as well. So I was all those pieces, but and I think that being like that, a lot of people don't know what to do when things are different,
Yeah,
right?
it's hard.
Yeah, definitely. People look at you like, you're what? Like, I'd be like, oh, I'm Dominican. They're like, really?
How?
Like,
How
but
did that happen?
you don't wear the shoes that Dominicans wear, or, your English is really good. Well, I was born here. So you're not Dominican, you're American. Well, I'm both. Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
trying to explain those things, like, there's no, they think about like the stereotypical um, kind of version of a Dominican person. And when you don't fit that mold or you don't fit those things, then, they just don't know what to do with you. They're just like, oh, she's weird. Oh, she's
Now,
something's going on with her.
now that you mention stereotypes, my idea of them is that they are an illusion, right? I think that stereotypes don't really exist. I think that we make it happen because we think that there is a mold that you have to like fit into. So someone decided that Dominican people only eat rice and beans. And now everybody else just eats rice and beans because that is the thing to do. But is that true? Like, where did that come from?
Right,
So I think
right.
everybody's just following the thing and not necessarily that there is like a stereotypical thing, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know how else to explain it.
No,
But do you know what I mean?
yeah, I definitely get it. Like, you create this mold or illusion of things, and then everybody tries to kind of like fit it, you know?
Hmm.
And I think that more so the people who don't know who they are, they try to fit
Yes.
it to the T, right? Because if I do things X, Y, and Z just like I'm supposed to because that's what it says and that's what people expect me to do, then I'm good.
You'll be
I'm me.
fine.
I'm
You won't
fine.
have to worry about, getting in trouble or anything. You'll be
Mm-hmm.
fine. But the
Exactly.
difficult thing is actually trying to find out who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
That is really difficult. And I don't think that, looking at it from a adolescent perspective and looking at it as from an adult perspective is totally different, obviously, for obvious reasons. But I think it's a job that you never, like it never ends. I feel like I am an adult and I should be able to really know who I am, but I don't in real life.
Mm.
Sometimes I feel like, okay, so I can give you a list of all my identities. Then I learned something new, or I learned that whatever I thought about this specific thing, it wasn't true. And now I think I know the truth. Half of that list probably changed already. And I don't think that people give themselves the opportunity to be okay with that. Like you don't have to be the same person. You're the same person, but you don't have to be have the same identities for your whole life. You don't have to believe everything that you believed before. You don't have to. That's the whole point of being alive and growing is changing who you are based on new information, based on new experiences, based on things that you see and you're like, oh, didn't know that, right? And now you
Yeah.
make a decision based on all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that changing that is not looked at as a positive thing in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think too, like when I think about like my belief system and who I am, right? Sometimes you see different parts of me
Hmm.
depending on what I'm going through.
Yeah,
Sometimes you'll see the more religious part of me depending on, maybe I'm battling something. Maybe something's going on with me that week that I need to just keep praying it out, or I need to focus and I need to be in meditation and I need to do things that I know that are good for my soul. Um Other times you'll see me being more in a dancing mood, more in a singing mood, happy and all that time. And not that I'm bipolar, yeah, right? Because people think that I'll be like, oh my God, this person's never the same. All those things are part of who I am, right? But it just depends on what I'm going through right there in my life, what stage I'm in, what's going on, what's motivating me that day, all those different things. So
exactly. And you bring up a really good point about not being bipolar. People need to stop diagnosing people. That actually is one of the things that makes it really difficult for people to be who they are.
yes.
Don't expect me to be
Mhm.
this happy all the time
Right? Oh my
because that is
gosh.
not my job. It's not my job to be in a good mood. As much as I think it is, it's not. Okay, I'm not that important. It's fine. So when people make comments like that, like, oh, so and so is so bipolar, no, they're not. They're human and they're having human feelings.
Hmm.
Every day is different based on what's happening that day. You don't have to have a mental health diagnosis. It's regular, it's normal. People have
Yes.
different feelings depending on what's happening. Not to say that there are not bipolar people in the world. They are, okay? But just being clear that you are entitled to feeling different things
Right.
depending on your situation. And it's fine. You don't have to be sick. It's fine. It's
No,
normal.
so true. I get that all the time. Like when I'm just into my thoughts and like in my couch and I'm not, as like dancing and singing, or like I'm just quiet, just calm. I'm relaxing and people are like, "Are you okay? Is something wrong with you? Are you sad? Did you wake up in a bad
No,
mood?" It's like everything's great. I'm alive, thank God. Like I'm just relaxing. It's a good day to
everything is
relax.
so good that I'm relaxing. What the
Right.
hell?
Let me appreciate this quietness right now. Thank you. And don't disturb it.
Exactly.
Don't disturb my
Exactly.
peace.
Exactly. And going through this journey of finding out who you are can be difficult for people around you, right? Because they're getting used to who you are, and then in 2 years, you become this not this new person. I think that's also something that we just exaggerate. You don't become a new person. You're improving yourself.
Yeah,
It's the same person upgraded, like a phone, right?
exactly.
And but people have a hard time with that because they're like, oh, because you used to do, yeah, used to in the past. I don't do that anymore, and it's okay. And you
I
should be able to love me doing that or not doing that.
right. I think it's so true, like, especially when you set boundaries. So, like, learning who you are, definitely you have to know what your boundaries are, right?
Yeah,
What you're going to let into your life and your lights and what you're not going to. And so, I think the hardest one that I've noticed. So, when I started setting stricter boundaries with the people around me, a lot of people didn't like that, you
of
know?
course not.
It's
Because it
like you
doesn't serve them, it serves only
exactly,
you.
right? If I was always the giving person, because I'm a giving person, if I was always the giving person where I would give without limits, right? And now I have limits because I noticed that when you don't have your cup full, you can't give, right? And other people haven't been filling my cup, and they haven't been, like when you expect certain people in your life that you're filling their cup and they don't fill yours, and you notice you start seeing things differently, where they're not there for you as you thought that they were. You know what I mean? So you're starting to set like stricter boundaries. You're starting to make sure that, you're taking care of you and your
Mm-hmm.
priority. A lot of people don't like that because they're so used to you doing for them what they didn't want to do for themselves, or
Mm-hmm.
all these other things, So that's something that I've learned, and it hasn't been very pretty for a lot of people, but I'm happy for myself, and that's what matters. So
And I'm happy for you for doing that because that is difficult to do. It sounds, easy peasy, but, in theory, it's easy. But in practice, it's really
Mhm,
hard because of what you just explained. People give you a hard time. People make comments in a way that make you feel like, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong.
mhm,
Maybe this thing that is making me feel good about myself is wrong,
mhm,
which comes from what we were talking about earlier. When we are little and our parents and teachers and neighbors and everybody has an opinion about you, except you, because you're not allowed to, because you don't know anything, right? You're a kid. Um, but now that we are an adult, we second guess ourselves based on
mhm.
all of those things that we don't even remember because it's unconscious. It's not like a conscious thought that you have that you know what it means and you know that it's there. All of that happens unconsciously.
That's so true.
It's like, you're acting like a computer. So you're just doing because your body's used to doing it, but you don't
Mhm.
know what it means because you haven't stopped to think about it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so true.
So this journey on finding out who you are is difficult
It's not pretty. Definitely, it's
and
not.
eye-opening too.
Right? You think like when you go through this process, you're gonna see rainbows and everything's gonna be great. And no, but like when you're digging deep and you're finding out who you really are, a lot of times you have to let go of a lot of things that you carry with you. And
Mhm.
having to get rid of those things takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of compassion for yourself, right? It takes a lot of forgiveness for other people
Hmm.
that did and said things that really hurt you and they don't even know it. It's a long process. But I think it's fun because you are getting to know who you really are at the same time.
Right?
You have these feelings and then you find yourself having those feelings and you're like, oh, I can be mean too. What? Part of my list. That was definitely not part of my list. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mhm.
And for example, myself, I always thought I was, this really nice, good person. Now that I'm not, I am. But I can also be mean, not to people directly, but in my thoughts. I
Ah.
sometimes find myself thinking things and I'm like, you gotta
Yeah.
chill out. Like, that's not okay. But I do have those moments and I should be able to feel good about those moments too, the same way that I feel good about the positive things, because that is me, that is also part of me.
Mhm, mhm.
And then it's my decision if I want to work on it to decrease it or whatever it is, but that is part of me. And I think that we want to just erase everything that is perceived by other people to be wrong and bad.
Mm,
And so that means that we're not being who we are, because everybody
exactly.
has those dark thoughts and feelings and stuff. So
Yeah.
by not thinking about it or talking about it doesn't mean that they go away. It just means that you're not being your whole self,
Right.
or you're pretending because you don't want people to think that you're a bad person or whatever it is.
Yeah. Like if you're, you know, have this perception that you always have to be good, that you always have to be nice, that you can never raise your voice, all these
Mhm.
things where it's like that's not likely. You're not like this perfect person, and don't set your expectations to be, because that's where the disappointment and the sadness comes in. If you're,
Yeah.
and I think that you need to accept, like you were saying, all parts, the good, the bad, the ugly. Every piece of you is part of you, and you have to
Mhm.
love it, you know, and work
Exactly.
through it. So,
Because you're a human, you're not a computer, right? If you were a computer, then you install all the apps that you want and, you know, take out the other ones. You can't do that with your feelings and your thoughts. It's not like an app that you can just
program.
mute or something. But yeah, identity sounds really easy, but there you go. There's a lot to think about.
Definitely true. Definitely.
And
Um,
I still couldn't make a list of like what makes up my identity. I can make a list, but I could never um, tell you who I am, like in a sentence like that. So, who are you? Uh, should I give you just the easy peasy answer? Or do we really want to dig in and find out who I am?
I hate when you go to interviews or things like that,
I
or
know.
icebreakers, and they're like, "So who are you?" Well,
Well, it
you're
depends.
really.
Do you want to go metaphysical? Do you want to go like psychological? Where, like where? Where do you want me to go? And I can do that for you. But I need like an hour, right?
Oh, it's not an easy question to answer, but it's a lifelong process, I think, and it's a journey that we go through. Um, but it's a good one. It's a good one that we need to go through. I think that the more you work on yourself and figure out who you are, then the less other people can sway who you are from being who you really are, your
Exactly.
authentic self. So,
Exactly. And it's also brilliant in a way because it just takes away everybody that doesn't serve you
mhm.
automatically. You don't really have to do anything. You just have to be who you are, and then they disappear. And then new people come in,
Yes.
new people that are really aligned to who you are inside, people that won't have crazy thoughts and ideas about you because a comment you made. You know what I mean? And so, in general, it is in your best interest to find out who you really are because it solves many, many problems that you don't even know you have.
Exactly. It'll take those friends that you don't need, people that you don't want in your life. You don't even have to say things to them anymore. I feel like a lot of times you notice they just stop texting or calling or are making appointments with you, and you're just like, oh, there's a reason behind it all. I accept.
Now that you say that, that is something that I've been really thinking about lately because I don't know if it's because something changed in the way that perceive those things, but I've noticed that a lot. Like every day, I'm noticing changes like that. And now I look at it, learning about energy and all of these things. And I really attribute it to that. Like my energy and your energy are not compatible. Okay. And that's okay. It's fine. But it is really interesting to see like
Mhm.
who goes, who comes, who
Cool.
it's like in between.
Mhm. Definitely. I,
That's
uh,
amazing.
I think like recently, so I've been posting a lot of positive things on my feed about energy, about finding out who you are, making sure that you're being authentic and all that stuff. And so like one of my old best friends, like we used to be so close. And like something happened in high school where me and her like just started hanging around with different people and stuff. But she was like, I used to sleep over her house. I known her probably since like kindergarten or like first grade or something. And then she hit me up. She's like, "Oh, I want to see you this weekend." And she's like, "The stuff that you've been posting lately has really been resonating with me." and I just want to spend some time with you. And I'm just like, yep. And then I love it because like usually like when people hit me up, I'm always like, yeah, 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 we'll hang out. But I'm not intentional. And I think that I need to be intentional with what I say. So I was like, yes, if you really want to hang out with me, I'm setting a date. This date, this time, let's do it. And that's exactly what happened. So now we have a date. So
That's amazing. See, and that's a really good example of what I was just saying. It's your energy and her energy click. They are compatible. And you guys didn't need to talk or see each other before you made that connection. That connection was made just by her reading whatever you posted.
Mhm.
So I think that is actually really good, Jackie. That is a really good example because the way we want to think about these things, we make it too complicated.
Right.
Either we click or we don't. And we don't have to. My energy and your energy don't have to be compatible. It's fine. It doesn't mean anything about you or me. It just means that we are not compatible. But we like to make it good and bad and this and that. It doesn't have to be. We are on the same wavelength. And that's it. That's all it means. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean that my wavelength is better than yours. It just means that it's a different one. And it's
Mhm.
fine.
Mhm. That's so true.
And this year, that's what I'm about. If I'm feeling good, if I'm feeling happy, I'm on it. If I don't, bye.
And we don't need
Like
excuses, right? It's
no,
just
just
bye.
no,
Okay,
and that's
that's it.
it. Yeah,
Keep it moving.
yeah. You'll
uh,
find somebody else who clicks better for you, and I'll find somebody else too. That's fine. It's okay.
yes. And I think before for me, like I would always guilt trip myself. I was always that person because I have such a good heart. It's like I need to be their friend and I need for them to like me and I need for
Yeah,
us to be good. And if they're mad at me, I need to know exactly why because I can't sleep if they're mad. And then sometimes people are mad at you for stuff that like it's not even you, you know, like I've noticed sometimes like people have so much stuff going on, trauma, whatever it may
they're
be,
mad about themselves
and they take it out
and
on
just
you.
using me.
And I'm over here stressing myself, like, oh my God, I need to find out why, but I
Oh,
don't like.
Jackie,
And then when they tell you something, right, and you don't like it, you have to keep asking, like, but that doesn't make sense, you know, but it does.
no, no. Imagine that response. Somebody's telling you how mad they are about you, and you go, "She's just mad about yourself. It's fine. Get over it." That would be something.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll get to that level. That would take a whole lifetime to get to that level. But no, seriously, my new motto in life is you don't have to anything. You do what makes you happy, and what doesn't, you don't. That's it. You don't have to explain yourself. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
And
explaining myself anymore, but I'm also not um, waiting for explanations. I don't need it. I just need you to tell me that no, I'll get it. It's fine.
mm,
I'm not gonna feel bad anymore. I'm not going to have all these, questions in my head. I've been trying to understand it. No, just said no, and it's okay. That's it.
yeah. And I think that realizing that you have to be sitting with yourself and figuring these things out and finding who you are. And that's not something that comes overnight. I feel like
No,
it's a process.
definitely, definitely. It's a
So,
huge process. It's a huge process.
yeah.
But I'm still working on my identity. Um, and I think that I should make a new list this week. Now that we're talking about it, I should pay more attention about who I thought I was last year and who I want to be this year, because that is something else. People think about identity. Oh, this is who I am already am. No, it's not. You can have goals of who you want to be and become that. You don't have to be who you were last year. It's a brand new year. So be a brand new you.
That resonates so much. I feel like so I know I've been talking to you about Clubhouse and how I joined, right? And
Yeah.
so I've been in some groups that, talks about like manifestation and just, your soul and positive vibes and light and energy and all that stuff. And so last night, one of the girls that had me be a speaker, it was her first time being the moderator of a clubhouse,
Hmm.
and she said that she needed to do it because her purpose was for her to learn to be more comfortable, and she was kept saying that she was socially awkward, and so the girls in the group were like, don't say that, like by you saying that, you're putting that energy out there, and that's what you're going to become. So instead of saying you're socially awkward, because you're not at all, and you've proved it by moderating this whole group and it's been flowing really great, like say, like you are an eloquent speaker, you are
Yes.
who you want to be, so say the things that you are right now, and don't say in the past tense, in the present tense. I speak clearly, I speak with intention. People understand me. All
Hmm.
those things, and it was just so beautiful. She was like crying. You could hear her. She was like, "Oh my
That
god."
is amazing. And you bring up a really good point about people forget that words have power.
Mhm.
Words have power. Never forget that. If you're going to go in life telling yourself and telling everybody how awkward you are, how not good enough you are, that's who you are going to be, because that's your goal. You keep
Mhm.
repeating it. So that's who you want to be. The universe wants to give you, God wants to give you whatever it is that you want. So if that's what you're asking for, there you go.
All right,
Right? Don't
exactly.
complain about it. Don't complain about it after, when that's who you are, because you kept repeating that. That's what you kept bringing into your life.
Exactly.
So if that's who you are right now and your goal is to be this improved, better you, then speak those words. Like you said, in present tense,
Exactly.
right now. You fake it
Definitely.
until you make it, okay?
It's good. That's really true. Yeah, definitely.
You do that. And then you're going to believe it because you repeated it so much that you're going to find yourself not even thinking anymore, because you already embodied this person that you wanted to be. And then you realize one day and you're like, oh, look at me.
Hmm.
Huh? When did that happen? Who knows when it happened? Because you were doing that every day. You were being that every day. And
And that's how it is.
people forget that.
Yep.
Like I was talking to this person the other day, and she knows a lot about the Bible and stuff, and but what she was telling me, it didn't align with what she knows. And in a moment in the conversation, I was just like, wait, stop. What you're saying is what you're hearing, not what you know from your heart. You know that's not how it works. You know you have the power to change it. Just do that. Do what you know, not what people are telling you.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter what people think. You know how to do it. Just do it. And one of the things is that words have power. Everybody knows that, from different perspectives, from
Yes.
a religion perspective, from a metaphysical perspective. It doesn't matter. Words have power, and everybody can attest to that. So use your words wisely every day. Practice, because you might be, you know, asking the wrong things and then
Exactly.
complaining about it.
Exactly. But I mean, we can definitely. I think that having a part two next week is going to be so exciting because we're just going to be able
Yes.
to talk about, your identity. Continue to talk about this, and how to be authentic, how to, make sure you're living the best life that you can live. So all those really great things that we'll be discussing. So come back and don't forget.
Don't forget. But in the meantime, follow us on YouTube as Living as Latinas. You can send us emails at livingaslatinas@gmail.com with any topics that you would like us to discuss. You can also follow us on Instagram, and the handle is Living as Latinas. Enjoy your week, and remember to be kind to others. Always be kind.
Always.
Thank you.